Welcome to this deep dive. You shared psychologist Kevin O'Doherty's comprehensive course on post-traumatic stress disorder with us, and today, our mission is to filter out the noise.
Right, to give you a complete, focused overview.
Exactly. It's a heavy topic, obviously, but our goal here is clarity. We really want to debunk some myths and highlight that, this is actually a highly treatable condition.
Yeah, I mean, we see the word trauma thrown around so casually everywhere now, like a frustrating meeting or a sad movie gets labeled traumatic.
Right.
But to understand the clinical reality, we have to separate a stressful, everyday experience from, a structural psychological injury.
It makes me think of falling off a bike. Like if you hit the pavement, you're pretty much guaranteed to get a bruise.
Yeah.
But not everyone who hits the pavement actually breaks a bone, right?
Yeah.
The physical impact might look the same from the outside, but the internal damage is completely different.
Yeah.
So what actually causes that broken bone, in a psychological sense?
Well, the data perfectly illustrates that gap. I mean, almost 70% of Americans will be exposed to a severely stressful event in their lifetime.
Wow, 70%.
Yeah, but only up to 20% go on to develop PTSD. To actually cross that clinical threshold, the event has to involve actual or threatened death or serious injury,
Right.
or, a severe threat to physical integrity. It triggers intense fear, helplessness, or horror in the exact moment it occurs.
That really fundamentally changes who is most at risk, I think. Because culturally, we associate PTSD almost exclusively with war veterans.
Right. And combat is absolutely a major trigger. I mean, it leads to PTSD in about 40% of men who experience it. But looking at the broader population, women are actually twice as likely to develop the disorder.
Wait, really? Twice as likely?
Yeah, because the highest risk event isn't combat at all, it's actually rape.
Oh, wow.
That trauma results in PTSD for an estimated 65% of male victims and 45% of female victims.
Those numbers are just staggering. It really means this injury is hiding in plain sight.
It really is.
But, if the symptoms are as severe as O'Doherty outlines he talks about re-experiencing the event through vivid nightmares, emotional numbing, and hyperarousal.
Right, constantly checking locks, keeping weapons, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So wouldn't someone instantly know they have it?
You would assume the distress would be obvious, right? But the timeline is incredibly deceptive. Symptoms can take months or even years to surface.
Decades even sometimes.
Exactly. Sometimes they subside entirely, only to just violently reoccur decades later in life.
It sounds almost like a fire alarm that gets permanently fused in the N position long after the actual fire is put out.
That is a great way to put it.
Like your brain is blasting the siren, but you don't smell smoke anymore, so you don't connect the two.
Yeah, and that fused alarm perfectly describes the avoidance symptom. The brain's amygdala, which is its primary threat detection center, just becomes hyperactive.
So it's trying to protect you.
Right. To survive the day, the mind actively blocks out the memory. People turn to emotional numbing or substance abuse without ever connecting their anxiety or insomnia to an event from years ago.
But since avoidance makes seeking help so difficult, how do we fix that? How do you bypass a brain that is actively trying to hide from the cure?
It requires therapies that physically rewire how the brain processes fear, so cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT.
Right, I've heard of that.
Yeah, it doesn't just talk about the past, it builds new neural pathways. And then prolonged exposure therapy takes this a step further.
By facing it directly.
Exactly. By safely and repeatedly confronting the memories they've been avoiding, the brain slowly learns the trigger no longer equals danger. It physically dials down that hyperactive amygdala.
You're essentially teaching the fire alarm how to reset itself.
Exactly.
But what about the intrusive thoughts, the distorted beliefs?
That's where cognitive processing therapy steps in, or CPT. It challenges beliefs like, I am permanently broken or the world is entirely unsafe.
Oh, I see.
And by correcting that flawed logic, the physical arousal actually decreases. Plus, medications are often used to stabilize the nervous system enough for that deep cognitive work to take hold.
So the core takeaway here is incredibly hopeful, really. You aren't just burying the pain. You are actively increasing your brain's tolerance and resetting its systems.
Right, because PTSD is a specific physiological and psychological injury. People can and do recover.
It's all about moving from helplessness back to control.
100%.
Well, to wrap up this complete overview, we want to leave you with a heavy but, vital thought to ponder. Given how these symptoms can lie dormant or unexpectedly reoccur years later, especially with things like childhood abuse, How many people in your everyday life might be fighting a quiet battle they haven't even connected to their own past?